Okay, so as I was saying, chapter 2, plain present, chapter 3, plain negative. This is where we saw the plain past. And the plain past drew from the te form, and the te form, as we remember, was chapter 1, which we reviewed. The plain past just relies on you being able to make the proper te form. And once you can make the proper te form, it's just a substitution of a ta for a te or a da for a de. And voila, you've got the plain past. This is also where we look at plain forms for adjectives and nouns. And in making the plain forms of adjectives and nouns, I think it creates a bit of confusion because all of a sudden you got those das and those day one eyes floating out there and you're not quite sure what's happening with this. But just to review, an E adjective is its plain form. If you think about it, it's a way to strip down something to its most short and concise way of expressing itself. So if Segoy des, the only thing you can dump are the deses and still keep the meaning. Right? So if you get rid of des, you still can read is great, is not great, wasn't great. And you still understand the meaning because even though the des is gone, there's your plain form. Na adjectives and nouns, as we said, you never touch them. So if we got rid of the des, we just have hen ken, as I have it here. You wouldn't know what tense it is. You wouldn't know if it's an is or an isn't or a was or a wasn't at all. And so that requires that you play with the des. And it's the only time you're going to be using this da, de, wanai, datta, de, wana, kata. So if you think about it, we have a verb, we have E adjectives, we have na adjectives, and we have nouns. Those are the 4 parts of speech we deal with in part when we're looking at plain forms. 50% of the time, if you're using it, that's where that des comes into play, but only for na and for nouns. And you know you're dealing with an adjective when you look at it because it has a des initially at the end. So if you look to the end of your sentence and you see a des, now you have to think, is it an E adjective or is it a na adjective or noun? Then when you know, you make your decision. And only if it's a na adjective or noun do you start putting those das and de wanais and datta de wanakatas in. All right. The plain forms are all used when we are using thinking and quoting. And remember that when we think and when we quote, these are positive. But if it's something like, I don't think it's great, the negative happens here. The past happens here. This is where the tense, the positive, the negative, the past, the negative past, this is where it all happens. So always to omoimasu. And then make it the thought that's positive or negative or past. The same thing with quoting. He said it isn't, he said it is, he said it was, he said he still says it. And in English we get confused because we say he didn't say that. No, he said that he didn't do it. So you have to keep in mind to omoimasu and to imasu will always be there for you and always in the positive. Imasu almost always in the past tense because you're quoting what someone said. Okay? And especially in this particular case. We also looked at 2 other things when we looked at this chapter, and one of them was to say how you did things, like etc., or as you like to say, do things like this and stuff. So we saw that in grade 10, we learned about the ya and the nado is a way to give an idea or highlights of a list of something, but that only works for nouns. Now, this tutty thing allows us to give highlights of actions that you accomplish. So there are 3 steps to making the plain past. To making this do things like, I'm going to add it in, and stuff. In other words, you're just giving highlights of what happened. Step 1, put all of the things in the plain past. Step 2, add a d. And then step 3, add shimasu in any form. And remember what we know from Japanese sentences. It's the last thing that takes you positive or negative or must or please do or please don't do or any of those kind of things. That plain past plus be just lets all of these sentences hang together. But without the shimas, it means nothing. So you can have as few as one, tabetari shimashita, I did things like eating and stuff. Or you can have, I think, a maximum of 3. And I say 3 because anywhere beyond that, people, like, I can't remember. Okay? So this is a great multiple choice question because we're looking to see if you remember all 3 parts that have to happen. We'll give you a blank shimashita, and we're looking for we'll give you shita shimashita, or we're giving you shimasuri shimashita, and we're looking that you realize it's part 1 and 2 have to go together. So that's a great one. We also looked in this at comparing. And in comparing, there's 2 ways to do your comparisons. One is to pick sides, and the other is to say of all of the somethings. And the first one that we looked at was the way to basically to compare 2 items. You could do 3, but basically to compare 2. And in other words, we're asking you to pick sides. So we say, look, this side, and this character is just read whole. So we say, you know, this side or this side, which side is more, and then whatever quality you want to pick. So keep in mind that things you can compare can be things like items, or they can be, as we looked at before, something you do or something to do. And the minute you can say you're doing something, that's that plain present plus koto. So you can say, hamburger no ho to pizza no ho dochira no ho ga motto oishii desu ka or oishii to omoimasu ka? Or you can say, hamburger o taberu no ho to pizza o taberu no ho to dochira no ho ga motto kitanai messy to omoimasu ka? So you can do it either way. And just remember, as usual, the winner gets the wa, I won, and the loser gets the yori. And when you give the answer, you can make it as formal as you want or as short as you want. So you could say, hamburger wa motto oishii desu, or hamburger o taberu koto wa motto oishii desu. Or you could say, hamburger wa pizza yori oishii, or hamburger o taberu koto wa pizza o taberu koto yori. So you can make it as long or short as you want. In speaking, we make it short. We don't go repeating too much. The other way that you can give an answer, instead of saying one beats the other, we could say something isn't as good as. And that's when we looked at that graph. And we talked about Mr. Lin and Mr. Lau. And so we looked at kibishi, we looked at kibishiness. And we said, okay, Mr. Lin's got this much kibishiness. And that's going to set the bar, or that's what gets the hodo. So whatever sets the level gets the hodo. And then we're going to go take a look, and we're going to look at Mr. Lau, and, there's Mr. Lau and his level of kibishiness. And he is, lacking some kibishiness compared to Mr. Lin. So it would be Mr. Lau, wa Lin sensei hodo kibishiku nai desu. So that's where that kibishiku nai would come into play. Desu. And if you think about it in English, you say, Mr. Lau is not as. And that's why that kibishi, the describing, goes negative. Okay? The other way that we compare is we say, of all the somethings in the world. And there you just set your category. So maybe you say, uta, songs. Uta no naka, and the signal is day. This is a great multiple choice question. Something no naka, and then after that, you've got to see a question word. Dore, donna, dare, doko. Ga ichiban ii desu ka? Because remember, we can do something like from grade 10, there's the house. That was an awful one. Uchi no naka ni ken ga imasu. So you just have to be careful. If that's location, then it's supposed to be a ni. That's what we're looking to trick you up with, because you were all programmed to go, oh, naka, it takes the ni, because that's location. But in this case, we're saying of all the something, and the signal is day. And that's a great multiple choice question. That's our fave. And that is chapter 7.